when creating georeference photogrammetry models in RealityCapture, or more or less any photogrammetry tool that supports georeferencing, it is very helpful to capture a good set of nadir photos. That is to say, photos that are oriented more towards the ground. This will assist RealityCapture, and again, more or less any photogram tool, with aligning the model to the ground. So you can see in this example, we have a model that's fairly well reconstructed, but you can see it's just not really level to the ground. So there are ways to fix this in RealityCapture, but before we do that, let's again examine this model so we better understand the problem. You can see that there are quite a bit of photos that are oriented towards the subject, which is great, but there are not a lot that are oriented to the ground. So these would be just your oblique photos, but not a lot of nadir photos, or quite frankly, probably not any nadir photos. So having some more nadir or a good grid of nadir photos above the subject would have really helped in this situation. In fact, what would be even better is if you had GCPs, but I know that's not always practical or even possible. You may not have the hardware or the time. So just doing a good set of nadir photos would really help with this. And I know even sometimes that's not always practical, but in this circumstance, we're kind of stuck with a model like this. Actually, I shouldn't say we're stuck with it. The point of this video is to mention there's ways of fixing it. So inside of RealityCapture, even with a georeference model, you can go to Tools, or actually it's Scene3D Tools, and then click Define Ground Plane, and you're given this orientation tool and this transformation tool that lets you position and orient the model wherever you like. Unfortunately, this is going to break more or less the georeferencing. The whole point of georeferencing is to let RealityCapture figure out the positioning and orientation of everything. But here, we just don't have a model that is good enough for utilizing the georeferencing of the photos themselves. So, and again, I should mention that if you have a drone with RTK, that also would have helped. So even if you're not using GCPs, they RTK of the drone. In this circumstance, it's just a consumer drone. It was a Mavic 2 Pro, so no RTK, and then the result was what you saw. So I was able, within just a few seconds, to align the model more closely to the ground. If I wanted to be a little bit more diligent with this, I could go to one of the views and switch to maybe a side view, and then maybe fix it and orient it a little bit better than that, but that's good enough. And now we're left with the model like this. Now, if I was to try to upload this to Nira, and I can do that by going here, click Share, Upload to Nira. I can include the camera photos or not, it's up to me. And here I can choose to use UTM zone coordinate system. What that will do is make sure that it will be back to being georeferenced. But what unfortunately happens is if you've made these changes, you are really not wanting it to be georeferenced. So in this circumstance, you want to make sure that you do not have it as this enabled. So you want to disable that, because if you do that, it's essentially going to orient the model back to the way it was or before we made the custom ground plane. In fact, one thing you also would want to do is go to the workflow tab, settings, and change to not use a coordinate system that's georeferenced, and actually pick the local coordinate system. And that way you'll get something like this. So if we didn't do that, you'll end up with a model that will look like this inside of Nira, even after you've made your custom ground plane. So it'll basically look just like the way it was. You still have all your photos, you still have all your cameras, so you can still see all them and do all that. But of course, it's going to be a little bit harder to navigate a model that's oriented incorrectly. And if you make the change and set it to local, you get a model like this. And then the big drawback to this is that it's no longer georeferenced. So when you click on the model, your coordinates are going to just give you the coordinates of a local 3D model and not georeferenced coordinates. So that's the only drawback. Again, if you really wanted to fix this, the only thing you can really do is to go back to the site, capture a bunch more nadir photos, or of course, any of the other suggestions, which is GCPs or a drone that has RTK or a combination of all of those. But with this, we can still get something that's usable and still do some inspection and maybe not care too much about the fact that it's no longer georeferenced. I hope that helps. And if you have any other questions, feel free to follow up. Bye now.